And now I'd like to open the meeting to the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Jeremy.
I'm very grateful tonight for daily practitioner support. On Sunday, after the service, I felt a great deal of loneliness. My usual way of working through a problem like that is just to keep working through it. So through the day, I just kept working, and by late evening, I felt much better. I spoke to my practitioner about it the next day, and she told me two things. The first is that expression is the opposite of depression. She said I needed to keep working to express God and to keep my thought off myself. And the second thing is from Science and Health by Mary Baker Eddy. The power of Christian Science and divine love is omnipotent. It is indeed adequate to unclasp the hold and to destroy disease, sin, and death. So I've been working with both statements, and I'm so grateful for how much better I have felt. It is so excellent to no longer feel isolated by these thoughts, but to know that the support is only a phone call away, and best of all, to realize that there is no truth to that feeling at all. We are one with God and are never alone. I'm so grateful to be here, learning about Christian Science and having a place in this church. I'm very grateful for tonight's readings, too, because they went along with it. Thank you so much. And now I have a testimony from Joseph.
Hi, this is Joseph from Barcelona. I'm very grateful today for this week's Bible lesson on life. One of the words which jumped up at me was the word unity. And I've always been taught in my life that unity is how well you get on with people, really, but you still hold that material identity. And I never looked at it in any other way. I've come to realise in Christian Science that in the same way as God is one, then so is his reflection, which is us, and how we must be striving for unity to reflect that at all times. Of course we have our uniqueness, but our uniqueness, thankfully, is something which can be worked with, especially the negative things, if we're looking at our life materially, which God can never see or be part of. One thing which I came up with in working with this word unity is the idea of the watches which the church does, because we are united in doing the Bible lesson, and we're also united in doing the watches. Now I have to say, although I'm aware that the church does watches, I've never bothered to look at them or find out what they were, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because I had a feeling that it didn't come from the authorized literature, although I don't particularly come from a Christian Science background, so I don't know why, but the watch system in the church is something that I never paid much attention to. Anyway, while I was working with this word unity, I came across something in the Tenets of Christian Science which Mrs. Eddy gave us. Of course, the Bible talks a lot about watch and pray, but as you know, there's many parts of the Bible that people around the world tend to either overlook or have a different interpretation of. But Mrs. Eddy tells us here in the Tenets of Christian Science from Science and Health, she says, "And we solemnly promise to watch and pray for that mind to be in us, which was also in Christ Jesus, to do unto others as we would have them do unto us, and to be merciful, just, and pure." It's very clear here that Mrs. Eddy has given us guidance, and the Bible also gives us the command, watch and pray. I always thought in the past to watch and pray simply meant that you paid attention to what you were doing, or you gave it your full concentration, in the same way as someone can say, oh, watch or watch out. But the meaning is much deeper than that. It seems that she's made it an obligation of our church membership, and I don't mean in any hierarchical kind of way, but she's making it very clear that this is something which we have a responsibility for. It certainly challenged me, and over the coming days I'll be looking at watches and what I should be doing with them, and indeed what they are. For those people who maybe think that it's not relevant, it's very clear here from Mrs. Eddy's words and from the Bible as well that it's something we should be doing. If anyone has any testimonies on watches, or how they do their individual watches, or the their participation in the group watch, I'd be really grateful if you could share them. And in the meantime, I'll be asking some other people about how they use their watches. So I'm just so grateful for this awareness that the word unity looks at how we together come to raise our thoughts. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Jim from Arizona, go ahead.
Thank you. I am very grateful that our church has been able to preserve some of the earlier writings, such as the Eustace materials. Just recently, I made a copy of There Is No Death. It was written by a student of Mr. Eustace. I had a copy of that, and a chaplain came and visited me, and I showed it to him. And he asked if he could take that and read it to his support group, which is a group of 18 or 20 people. And I was ever so grateful that I had it available. It is just an outreach for our Christian Science. I am most grateful for all our activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the beautiful music and readings this evening. I am very grateful for all that I'm learning here from my Plainfield practitioner, the members, and participants. Last Sunday, we discussed what it means to take up the cross and face persecution when following Christ Jesus. While listening, I realized before coming here, I did not really understand what I believed in, nor what I was standing for, or how to navigate this tricky world. As Paul wrote, I was tossed to and fro, carried with every wind of doctrine. This confusion is leaving, as I am, through Bible study and other offerings here, and building a solid sense of purpose, a greater understanding of God, developing more consistent Christian habits based on fixed biblical principles, and developing my faith and gaining a deeper understanding of obedience. The change in my life is bringing more stability, honesty, health, happiness, discipline, order, and peace. I am becoming more useful for God. I am grateful for the teachings that are patiently but persistently done here that brings our focus back to the Bible and the Mary Baker Eddy and her writings. Thank you so much, and have a good evening.
Thank you. LuAnn from New York, go ahead.
I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to God for the divine love I have come to know since coming to this church for help. So many times God has shown me mercy, even though I was very sure I didn't deserve it. He has blessed me greatly with His abundant supply in perfect time to meet my need. He has assured me of my worth when I felt there was no point in living. He has patiently chastened me and surrounded me with His angels every step of the way. When I stumble and fall, He's right there waiting for my obedience to Him as He perfectly governs every aspect of my life. I would never have been able to know any of this if not for the prayers and guidance of my practitioner and her application of Christian Science. I have been so abundantly blessed to have the teachings that is so lovingly given as I work my way through the Bible and our textbook, Science and Health with Key to the Scripture by Mary Baker Eddy. This journey has not been easy, but the place I came from was much worse. I am so thankful for the healings and for the rebukes, which have helped me to develop in me a higher sense of my relationship with God and what is required of me to maintain that oneness as His reflection. There has been times when I felt it was impossible to overcome the difficult claims. But the wonderful thing about Christian Science, in which I have learned, all things are possible with God. Since coming here, I have seen so much pure humanity and brotherly love that I could never deny the presence and power of God. I am so thankful to be learning the lessons I need to learn. I'm very grateful for everything I've been given. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara or Ken from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Hello. Some very scary family relationship challenges have come to the surface in the last few weeks. I don't know how we could have dealt at all well with them without God's help through Plainfield Church activities and the consecrated prayers of a Plainfield practitioner. The chapter on marriage in Science and Health was a big help, as was hymn number 400, especially the words, "The clouds ye so much dread are big with mercy and will break in blessings on your head." And from Isaiah, "For the mountains shall depart and the hills be removed, but my kindness shall not depart from thee," when it felt like the bottom had dropped out of key relationships. As a result of these ideas and others, we have seen some wonderful healing and growth. Thank you, God. Thank you all.
Thank you. Shardul from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Thank you for this beautiful service. Tonight, I would like to share a physical healing that took place because of a gentle practitioner with her gentle help from the Plainfield Church. It was in 2014 I started to have a discomfort in my right breast that turned to pain. I was certain that it was what is called sympathy pain because my daughter, who does not practice Christian Science, had an abscess in her breast, and it was eventually surgically removed. The pain went away for a short time, but soon returned, and it was so painful that I had to alter my clothing for some relief. It was then that I called a practitioner for help, and all was well very quickly, and it has never returned. Here at Plainfield, I am learning that you can't have sympathy with any form of pain or distress because it never has come from God. I believe that it was stated during a Bible study that we should never have pity, but rather compassion, because the Christ will lift up the person or the situation involved. Thank you for every aspect of this service tonight and always.
Thank you. Tom from Iowa, go ahead.
About a year ago, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and through the help of the practitioner in this church, this has been healed. And for about a week now, I haven't been taking any medication for it, but I haven't had any bad symptoms, and I just feel fine. I feel strong and fine and feel God constantly and through the practitioner's work, and I'm very grateful for this healing, and just shows what Christian Science can do. And I'm also grateful for the readings tonight and the other testimonies. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen from Kansas, go ahead.
Yes. I want to give a testimony about having problems with my legs and not being able to go in the store and have to use a self-propelled cart in order to get around. It was supposed to be a car wreck, and that left me with stenosis of the spine. Through the help of a Christian Science practitioner, I finally came to the conclusion that I just had one body and that it is spiritual, not material. And in the forum highlights, which was sent to me by the Plainfield Church, I read the following, and this is in quotation mark. A practitioner told me to thank God that I am spiritual and not material every time I feel an ache, a pain, or suffer in any way. Use that ache or pain as a reminder that the belief that matter has life, truth, intelligence, or substance, and that these are material laws which will always lead to sin, disease, and death. Why? It's because those beliefs are false. Well, I am so grateful for the Christian Science practitioner because after she worked for me, I was in a big supermarket just pushing a cart and getting along just fine. I had no pain. I am so grateful for this, and I hope that the conclusion will become more and more real to me, this conclusion, and help me grow more in Christian Science. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Gary.
Now that we're having real winter weather, I was thinking about an experience I had a couple years ago, that was a really, really good lesson for me. I needed to schedule a business trip in the middle of winter, and it was a trip in which it was appropriate for my wife to accompany me. And in praying about scheduling this trip, there were a lot of factors to consider. One was that neither my wife nor I wanted to miss a church service here in New Jersey, either a Wednesday or a Sunday. And the other important factor was that my wife is a Christian Science practitioner and needs time each morning to take calls from patients. Well, I asked for the help of a practitioner to schedule this thing, and the practitioner said, make sure that God is governing every detail. And that includes whether I should take the trip in the first place. Make sure God is governing. Well, after taking into consideration all of the factors that we felt were very important, there was only one flight in each direction that would work for us, where we could take the trip and also do all the things that we felt we needed to do for church and for God. So I booked those flights and I scheduled meetings around them. Well, as the day approached to leave, there was a forecast of a very severe storm for New Jersey that was scheduled to arrive about the time that our plane was supposed to take off. And there were some flights that were being canceled that day because of that impending storm. Well, we went to the airport, we got on the plane, and the plane took off. And as we took off, we could see the storm very close by, approaching. We flew around it and found out later that all the other flights out of New Jersey that day were in fact canceled. Well, the day came for us to return to New Jersey, and there was another forecast of another severe storm to hit New Jersey about the time that our return flight was supposed to land in New Jersey. And in fact, some of the flights to New Jersey that day were being canceled because of that coming storm. Well, we prayed, we got on the plane, and the plane took off. And as it was landing in New Jersey, we could see the storm approaching. And we found out later that every other flight to New Jersey after hours was indeed canceled because of that storm. I'm so grateful for God's protection. And I'm grateful to have learned that things like this are not a coincidence. They don't happen. They don't just happen. Our experience is a result of divine principle at work when we obey God and do His will. Or it's the result of a lack of principle when we don't obey. I'm grateful to see that when we put God first and take care of what He wants us to take care of, He takes care of us. And I was reminded of the covenant that God made with the Israelites. And today we see it clearly. It's divine principle in action. So I'm so grateful for this experience. I'm so grateful for the help of the practitioner. So grateful that my wife was able to accompany me and to see God at work taking care of everything we need to have taken care of.
Thank you. Craig.
Thank you for the readings on mercifulness. And I felt very clear that as a parent, God He has been so merciful, and has taken so much. Whenever I had an issue in parenting, has taken that load off of me, and basically has said that I've got these children in hand, and I'm going to help them and teach them, and it has been such a relief. My son is very lighthearted, and sometimes he doesn't always seem to get the point of slight scolding. He's just so, if something's not quite right. Well, he had a beautiful healing here with the God guiding a doctor's hand, gave him a new tear duct, or he needed. And, but he may not have taken it as how beautiful a thing it was, because the doctor said in 20 years he never saw a healing like this before. Well, in his sort of lightheartedness, he disturbed what the doctor had temporarily put in place. And so we went today to see what could be done. The doctor looked at it and said, well, if it's lights and all, says, it's nothing I can do, but we don't want you to ruin what I've done. And he was stern, and he told him, don't ever take it upon yourself again to do something without asking that what should be done. And which is basically saying you should have asked God before you did this instead of just doing it. And I called a practitioner and asked for support, and I just felt that God was taking care of it, and was told that when he learned the lesson, he would have a complete healing. And the lesson is to take it back to God. Just don't take it upon ourselves, but find out what's right to do and to do it, and to learn the lesson from things. I was greatly relieved at that. I think he got the point. God is very patient and very kind. And he's safe, I'm sure. It will all be taken care of. But things happen until you really get the point. And I'm sure this is one major step to him recognizing that we always need to learn our lessons. Thank God for this church and his protection.
Thank you. This is Bruce. I'm very thankful for the testimony that Joseph gave earlier about watching, about how important it is. And I had an experience many years ago that I think that is worth repeating. I had just actually moved to Plainfield, and I was talking to the practitioner that was here at the time. She looked at me and said, well, we're going to have to make a watchdog out of you. And then she said, and what time is your watch? I said, well, I don't really have a watch. Well, she gave me a time and she said, now get up and do your watch at this time. And that was the end of it. There wasn't any sense of instruction as to exactly what to do or how or whatever. And the next morning, I called her up. Well, I got up and did my watch. And she says, now what time was your watch again? I told her. Okay, and that's the last it was ever mentioned. The following morning, when I got up from my watch, I felt something tremendous. It was like a rush of love, a rush of strength, an absolute confidence that all is well. There was just something that was very light and joyous and positive and obviously very good. I just felt it. Well, when I called the practitioner later that morning, the first words out of her mouth was, did you feel it? And I said, yes, I did. And she said, good. That taught, and there was no further instruction on watching after that. So that taught me this tremendous lesson. This whole idea of watching, you can't put it in a formula. You can't say exactly how you do it, because inspiration is governed by God, the Almighty Mind, who governs all things. And He is the one who regulates how things are done. And when He does regulate them, the outcome is always good, because that's His nature. He is good, all good and the source of all good. To this day, I'm still learning about how to watch. But it's a grand adventure. It's a great opportunity to commune with all Heavenly Father and let Him show us what to do, how to do it, what to think, and how to do it, everything. And I'm learning still how to listen a little bit better to that Almighty Mind. And it's a wonderful experience. I'm looking forward to learning more. Lil.
A short while ago, I asked a practitioner for help with pain in my knees, which I've never had before, and was told to handle age. They did get better, but I felt I needed more help. It was explained that age can often turn one's thought inward, and I made a formula, age equals self, and was given a couple of perfect examples of that happening to people I knew, and that this problem was no part of me. Well, this really hit home. I've been watching my thought very closely and thinking outward. I'm so grateful for the practitioner telling me exactly what I needed to know. And I'm so grateful that this new way of thinking is helping me be closer to God and more used to Him, and also for the physical healing. Christian Science saves lives. Thank God. I am just so grateful. And thank you for those wonderful readings.
Thank you. Florence or Dede, go ahead.
Oh, this is Florence. Thank you. Thank you for the beautiful readings on mercy. And I would like to share tonight a couple of things that I've came across this week. This is several times I've read them, but again, it stood out very clearly. Mrs. Wilcox, in her book, the address is, this book is available in our church. She points out the fact that to maintain a mental position, always with the truth, is so important to our journey here. He says that you can ask ourselves, am I maintaining the truth about myself and others, or am I believing in wrong thinking? It's essentially what she's saying. This is on page 218. And I'm so grateful that her book is available that we can learn from, because she, I believe, or I know, worked directly with Mrs. Eddy. To maintain this constant truth of perfection in mind helps a lot, because it really does keep us on a ground so firm with the truth that when things come up, we don't feel so shaken. In the practice, there's often lots of complaints about, well, this and that and everything. And in that sense, mortal mind is trying to paint a picture which we know is not true. She also says that in science, we should admit only the divine fact to be at hand. I found that so profound, because if we are scientists, then we are scientists at all times. This is a reminder for myself as well, that at all times should we see that right here, right now is God. Right here, right now is the most powerful, actually the supreme power at work. And I find thinking this way really does help us in facing whatever may come up. When past errors appear to return, we can know that they have no history. They never even happened. They are still suggestions. The fact that they are coming up again doesn't make them real. I am so grateful for all these resources that this church provides, because without them, I don't think that we'll all be on this journey that we are gaining so much from. Thank you so much for the previous testimonies, and thank you for the service.
Thank you. Mary.
I'll read a few things from our website bulletin board. From Costa Rica, I listened to the Wednesday testimony service this morning while feeling a bit overwhelmed by the seeming evil and hopelessness of this world, and the hymns 148 and 350 lifted me up again. I am so grateful for our Plainfield Christian Science Church. I can feel the love, warmth, humility, and sincerity and deep commitment of its members. With the official organization, I always felt coldness and distance. And then Marilyn, many updates to the website lately. I like how the new format makes it especially easy to find information on a mobile device. I was up early this morning and was able to quickly browse to articles from early workers and found a good statement to work with. Thank you for putting these timeless truths at our fingertips. And then a letter from Vermont. Dear Plainfield Church, thank you for another wonderful year of being a member of this vibrant and beautiful church. We are grateful as out-of-town members to be able to have a church home across the miles through online and teleconferencing services. We are grateful for the dedicated practitioners and the clear teachings of Mary Baker Eddy's Pure Christian Science. And we are grateful for the consistently superb musical offerings that often leave us in tears as they are so beautifully moving. In short, we love everything about this church. Thank you, everyone, and please accept the enclosed check as an expression of our gratitude. I'm so grateful tonight to be here to hear the beautiful music, the testimonies, the beautiful readings tonight, so well given on mercy. In our lesson this week in Romans, it says, "We know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose." It's such a beautiful and comforting statement. I remember clinging to it during a time when I was walking through very, very troubled waters. Really, I couldn't see my way out, actually. And that verse, that all things are working together for good to them that love God, to them that are called according to his purpose. And at that time, even though perhaps maybe my thinking wasn't as great as it could be, it was a little bit murky, I was doing my best to obey God to the best of my ability, and I was yearning to know him more. I was finding a degree of purpose in following his commands as faithfully as I could. So I clung to that. And even though at that time nothing seemed to be working out and there didn't seem to be any, even perhaps hope that it would, I knew that it was in the Bible and it was a promise that all things would work together for good. So everything was working together for good. Even though I couldn't see it, I could trust that promise. And as I sometimes crawled along, things got better, things got brighter, and one by one, all the troubles and what seemed to be impossible conditions and situations began to unravel and to be healed. Mainly, it was my outlook, my viewpoint. I began to see as God sees, to see God's creation, and to give up all this fear and negativity. But he had worked it all together for good. And it wasn't just in my life, it was in the lives of others who were perhaps in this situation with me. It all worked together. There's a saying that God can turn it to gold, and that is the truth. No matter what your circumstances is, I promise you that this is God's promise, and he will work it together for good. As long as you do the very best you can, he will turn it to gold. Just don't give up faith. I thought, boy, I was walking through those waters. It was easy to want to turn back or to sink or to dive in or to give up in some way. But you just keep walking and it'll work out. Always has and it always will. I know this to be a fact. It's a law and a principle of God Almighty. I'm so grateful to have learned this in this church. I'm grateful for Mrs. Eddy for giving us the truth that we could live. We can never be discouraged because God is with us every moment of every day. So grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you.